Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, ChatGPT for PLG. Talk with your Salesforce or segment data. My name is Matt Brown, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we begin, just a few logistical reminders. Today's discussion is being recorded, and you are currently in a listen-only mode. You may submit questions throughout the session using the Q&A functionality in the lower section of your Zoom console. If this is your first time joining a single store webinar, heads up that we present weekly technical workshops demoing data and AI use cases and new technologies. In fact, next week, we will be presenting how to use Google Vertex AI to fine-tune LLM apps. Wes, if you want to click to the next slide. During this time, our team will be presenting a hands-on coding demo of how to fine-tune LLM apps using Google's powerful new tools. If this topic sounds fun to you, feel free to register right now. You've got the bit.ly link there at the bottom. I'll put that in the chat in a minute. And then you've also got this QR code. Feel free to snap a photo with your phone, take a screenshot, whatever you need to do. Hopefully this sounds fun to you, and we will see you next week. Also, Wes, if you want to, there you go. Pleased to announce that Single Store is sponsoring $100 off discount codes for the upcoming Real-Time AI Developers Conference at the Chase Center in San Francisco on October 17th. This one-day conference will feature keynote sessions from industry leaders from LangChain, AWS, IBM, Google, and much more. So come to see hands-on sessions on generative AI, private LLMs, vector and contextual databases, image recognition, computer vision, autonomous robots, and much, much more. So if this sounds fun to you, please register right now. You've got the bit.ly link there on your screen. You can also take a photo or a screenshot of that QR code. Single Store is going to sponsor $100 off for the first 100 clicks to that link. So I'll put that in the chat as well. And then final note here, back to today's topic. We're going to have fantastic technical experts joining our Zoom Q&A. They've got a good grasp of the technologies involved. They're ready to answer your questions interactively. Please welcome Akmal Chowdhury. He's going to be live in the QA chat with me. We'll try to answer as many of your questions as they come in. I'll also try to flag a few for the live Q&A with Wes at the end of the session. We would love for you to check out today's technology. Wes is going to be walking through a demo. Anyone who tries it today will be entered for a chance to win new AirPods Pro. Click this link you see, check out the QR code. All you need to do is log into Single Store to be eligible. You can log into a new free trial if this is your first time with us. You can log into an existing account if you're already a customer, or an ongoing trial. I'm going to check the folks who log into this link, and we'll announce a winner by the end of today's session. So enough of the preamble. Let me get to introducing our speaker for today, Wes Kennedy, Senior Technical Evangelist at Single Store. He's got strong expertise in big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. He is a regular speaker at our weekly webinars on data and AI. Welcome, Wes. You now have the floor.
Well, good morning, everyone. Happy to be here. Today, we're going to dive into using ChatGPT for your PLG data. Specifically, today, we're going to talk through basically your segment data and how you might talk to it. Anybody that's worked with Segment or Salesforce knows that there's so many interconnections between all of these various PLG apps that there's a number of different ways that you can do it. But today we're going to dive into how and why you would want to do this, including a demo here towards the end. So I guess one of the big things that we always ask ourselves when we're working in PLG or when we're working in tech marketing is what we're doing actually working? And I know here we're always looking at the numbers, and every time we put out a new campaign, does this campaign work? And you don't always have that opportunity to talk to your data, right? I can't just say, hey, data, what are we doing right here? We have to build all sorts of dashboards in Tableau and make sure that the queries are right and all sorts of things. And we really end up relying on a whole bunch of different pieces that make things very, very difficult. And well, if there's anything that if you work in marketing, it's that there is a piece of technology for every single part of this industry. And at the end of the day, you could end up having dozens of different places that you're sending your application data to, your customer data to try to suss out just a little bit more information. And we firmly believe that if we can take all of this data and we start shoving it into one location, so just take your influencers data, your CRM data, your advocacy data, data from your CDPs such as Segment, and get it shoved into a single data lake, and then start querying it with AI, we can really start to learn a lot more about what's going on with our customers. And really, at the end of the day, what if we were able to show the right information to the right person at the right time? Seems like a pretty basic thing to want to dive into in a marketing team, but I know every time we get on our marketing leadership call, Madhukar asks some questions about, where are we doing with X, Y, and Z? And it'd be great if we were just able to go, what are we doing with X, Y, and Z? And ask a bot, and it comes back and it tells me exactly what's going on with that, rather than having to spend hours before creating charts and graphs and queries that get out that data that we're looking for. So one of the big things with single store is the ability to ingest those millions of data points that are coming from your applications, persist them to disk in milliseconds, and then make it available to each and every part of your organization in the format that they need instantaneously, and do that without breaking a sweat. Scale out, scale up, whatever we need to do there. But the big thing about all of the data points that make PLG work is you need to be able to meet the size, swiftness, and spectrum points and the highlights there. And as we all know, taking your point in time data and letting it sit and rot over a period of weeks until we actually finally get to look at it, by then we've lost the attention span of the customer. So what if we were able to act on the data in real time as it's coming in? And that's where we really want to bring our applications. That's where we want to bring our users and our teams. So, take for instance, if we have a sign up process for our application and it takes various steps, I know we've got a couple different steps you go through when you sign up for singlestore.com. What if, we knew within, an hour of seeing that a user didn't actually complete the sign up for their email address. They didn't confirm that their email address is accurate. And we know that the standard deviation or the mean time to complete is a certain period of time, say 10 minutes. Well, then we can start creating some rule sets around that and act on this data in more real time, and maybe send out a personalized email to that person automatically, using some ChatGPT generated content, saying, hey, we noticed that you didn't complete your email sign up. Here's a link to do that. And then add in some reasons why they may benefit from our product. And the nice thing is you could also enrich those emails based on additional context that you know about the user. So knowing that, if their domain is, apple.com, talking about how your company could help Apple in completing what they need to do, right? And just little blurbs in there to personalize those emails for what they need to do. I know, if you get a recruiter reaching out and they're saying, hey, and you're a senior solutions architect, and they come out and they say, hey, I've got this desktop engineering job for you. I'm not likely to respond to that. But if they were to come and actually have looked at what I've done in my career, then I'm more likely to respond. And a customer is going to be the same way. If that data, if that email that goes out to them is more structured and written for them, they're more likely to respond. So single store is really built on top of three things. We want to be able to transact, analyze, and then contextualize your data in real time. So traditionally, the data market has been basically viewed on the context of transactions versus analytics. Single store is differentiated because we are able to store and manage the data in a universal format that enables us to both analyze and transact in sub-second time. We can do 12 million upserts a second for Akamai using pipelines. Analytics, we've got 40 millisecond analytics response with 10,000 plus concurrency at one of the largest banks, over petabytes of data. And then we're able to contextualize and add additional metrics to their searches using something like vectors, semantic search, keyword search, or dive in and do some more things with our notebooks, which we'll show a little bit today. We've supported vectors since 2017. So vector database support is nothing new to us. And then, we want to know that, or we want you to know basically that we also are able to do relational SQL, JSON, time series, geospatial data, and more. So that puts us in place to be a multi-model database to suit all of your needs in a real-time and contextualized fashion. So under the hood, we are a scale-out database. So that means you can add multiple nodes as you need to scale it out. We can bring in data from your data pipeline, be that from Kafka or any number of other data sources. We can ingest directly from Mongo. That goes into our memory-based row store, then written down into our column store, and then eventually tiered down into an object storage type platform. Excuse me. Beyond that, we have aggregator nodes that allow our users or our analytics users to query those in place of the actual nodes that are doing a lot of the data pipeline type work. This ensures that there's no slowdowns or anything like that for production, while also enabling anybody that needs to do analytics against that data to continue to function and do their jobs. Now we're able to do that at scale. That's not just at a small level. Obviously we're ACID compliant. We can handle high concurrency through multiple people hitting the database to do those analytical workloads, or the high concurrency of ingest from multiple different external pipelines, like I mentioned before, Kafka, Mongo, or others. And then we are an enterprise-grade database. We have recoverability built in, which is something that a lot of the other vector databases today do not have. So, like I mentioned before, SingleStore helps users build real-time analytical and AI apps by transacting, analyzing, and contextualizing the data. So let's dive into what a transaction could look like. So SingleStore powers applications that require fast access to changing data. Armis secures their customers' assets, their IoT devices. That data is changing rapidly. They ingest and update millions of rows per second, and they do this 60% more cost effectively than they did in their previous solution. The key to that real-time app is the immediate availability of that data. So once it's persisted to disk, it's immediately made available for querying, and that is measured in milliseconds. And that's something that not a lot of database providers out there can say. As that data adds up, you really need to start making sense of that data and analyze that data in real time. Otherwise, it becomes old and stale, like we had discussed. So SingleStore is powered by that universal storage, which we showed before, by both supporting transacting on that data and analyzing it in real time. Basically, that gives our customers like Heap the ability to run funnel analysis on over 2 terabytes of clickstream data in sub-second response times. We have strong JSON capabilities inside of our database. We're able to store that JSON data and provide analytics on top of that JSON data, which is unlike a lot of competitors as well. We have a full Mongo API to access direct to our database, which enables you and your developers to not change how you've traditionally accessed that data as well, which is very handy. And most recently, we've released our Notebooks platform. So Notebooks is a web-based Jupyter notebook, has native SQL support, which with direct ties into your databases that you have access to inside of our portal. You can explore the data using Python or SQL, all within that notebook. and we can do data visualization and collaborate and share on those notebooks in real time. You'll get to see notebooks here in just a few minutes when we go through our demo. So in the beginning, we talked about how you need to be able to act on your data quickly, but more than being able to act on your data quickly, you also need to be able to contextualize it. And if you don't contextualize your data, you're just throwing AI at a problem and hoping it solves it. But AI itself, these models themselves, they don't have your company data built in. So this is where being able to contextualize your data in a very high speed and then send that off to the LLM helps improve your experience and your accuracy with your AI applications. So a basic retrieval augmented generation app could look like something like this. This is something where you could very easily deploy it in a private manner and actually be releasing something for you, an open source toolkit in October at Single Store Now, which will enable you to deploy a private LLM stack inside your data center with ease. Now, as you can see here, you've got a basic application, whatever that application may be. We'll show a basic one later today. That application reaches back to your database being SQL Single Store, which has vector, SQL, and NoSQL support. Your data is streaming in from all of your other sources through our pipelines. That Gen AI app reaches out to a commercial LLM or to a model that you've brought in using Hugging Face or something similar to that. Those are kind of the basics of what an RAG app would look like. So let's kind of put it all together and talk about how we can move forward. So what matters is the size, spectrum, and swiftness of your data. So you need to be able to cover all your data types, whether they're SQL, NoSQL, structured, and semi-structured. You need to have some intelligence in there to help power these new generative AI opportunities. You don't want it to just be shoving, non-contextualized data at them, because I don't know if anybody here has messed with ChatGPT and you just start asking it questions. It only knows what it knows, and it often can hallucinate. So that's why if you provide it more accurate contextualization of the data, it's going to come back with a more accurate response. And then you need to be able to power and work in your data in a real-time fashion. We can't understate how important it is to be able to act inside of a PLG program with real-time data. Single Store Chi enables us to drive fast analytics on top of the JSON data, the non-structured data. Because we've had vector support for so long, we are the ideal contextual database because we have all the other multi-model support to help make sure that you can build powerful Gen AI applications. And then we've got our universal storage, which enables us to allow for real-time ingestion and then real-time presentation of that data back to the application. Everybody has to have a slide with all the pretty logos on it. Here's ours. There's quite a few pretty big names on there. This just goes to show that we're here to really ensure that we can make sure that across all industries, we can help them improve their businesses and act more reliably on their data. All right, so let's take a look at what it would look like to basically build a real-time digital marketing plus ChatGPT app on top of Single Store. So let's say your transactions, your data sources all live in Amazon S3 or Kafka. We'll take those, we'll ingest them using our pipelines. It's just a basic SQL statement that enables pipelines, and then we connect back to where that data source is. We will store segments of the data, offers, whatever the app needs in this case. And then we're able to, in the background, then, generate and create matches for those subscribers. and then contextualize that and create notifications based on their user history or their location. And then beyond that, enable them to ask real-time questions. So at the end of the day, if you wanted to build a chatbot for your website and have the ability to really interact with your users live as things are happening inside your platform, this could be something that you would build there. You would have all your data streams coming in, and as a user is working inside your platform, let's say it's a network monitoring platform, and a network link goes down. You could pop up that notification inside their chat. They could ask some questions to the AI about what happened leading up to it, what failed, whatever that is, and immediately start to get information that is useful to them instead of the flood of Nagios alerts or whatever it is that they would normally receive. Here's a great case study here. So Fathom is a big user of Single Store. They moved all of their analytics data over to us, and they saw over 1,000 times improvement in their performance on basically how many inserts they could do per second and how fast they were able to do their key value lookups against DynamoDB. 6sense was able to take their poor query performance, their timeouts, their user experience that was really kind of terrible, take Hadoop, Presto, and MySQL, put it all into Single Store, and they saw basically a 50% reduction in their time to value. And then they were able to very quickly scale out and handle large data sets without much of a problem. All right, so that's enough of the back end stuff. Let's kind of dive into a hands-on demo. So before we get there, I want to kind of walk everybody through how this is built. So I've got a Python generator, which uses Faker to generate fake customers and fake activities for a fictitious to-do app. It shoves that data into Segment, which is a CDP, Customer Data Platform. Salesforce, I put this here to show you it's very easy to integrate Salesforce into Segment, create that link, and you can either link directly to Salesforce using their Python APIs, but most likely most people are using Segment to kind of pull data from multiple sources or push data to other sources. In this case, with every event or identification that comes in, so when a user signs up, we identify them, and then we call a webhook server, which I quickly developed using Fast API. That webhook server will take that new user, create an embedding using all of the data that they provided. So first name, last name, phone number, email address. Obviously, in this case, it's all fake. The embedding comes back from OpenAI. I package it all up and I send it into Single Store. And then when we go to query this data, which I'll show you here in a minute, we type in our user query. We send that user query off to create an embedding of it. The embedding is returned. We then do a .product search of the database for the most similar matches to the query. We return those results, convert them to a string, and then we build the prompt for the LLM. So in this case, I'll say, when I send this off to the LLM, and I'll show you this in the code itself, the user asked, who has completed the most to-dos in our application? And the context is blah, all of the results from the database searches that have been chunked to fit inside of the 4,096 token limit that we have for each request. That context that we're providing has user ID, first name, last name, email address, and the events in which the actions that they have taken inside of our application. Then the LLM responds with the users who have completed the most to-dos in our application. And then we'll kind of take it from there. So let me pop out of this. Need this thing to go away. Okay. I'm going to refresh this. While that's refreshing, I am going to share my code. One moment. Screen. All right. VS Code. Here we go. Okay. So for the webhook server, it's going to look a little intense, but I'll walk through some of the basics of what matters. So we have our connection out to the database here. We are inputting our API key from a .env file. We are choosing the embedding, the model that we need for getting embeddings. We have a function where we provide the content to that function. It will call out to OpenAI to create the embedding using the model that we've chosen. The response comes back. It'll also respond with like how many tokens it used, if you care about that, what the status is. I just set it's a success here to make it, kind of lazy for this. And then I'm returning all of those outside this function. And then we have some various write action and write customer to the database. Our database has two tables, customer table and an events table, or actions table, I think is what it's called. The user ID is a common link between those two. But at the end of the day, what I'm doing is anytime I receive a webhook from Segment, if it's an identify hook, so that'll come in on my /identify, then I will call the write customer to database function, format the data in the way that the database is going to expect it. Because the timestamps are formatted in a couple different ways, I created a function that just kind of normalizes all the timestamps. And then we create the embedding for that user's data, so that customer's data that's coming in. So every new customer, we create an embedding for that customer. We store it alongside them in the database, and I'll show you the database in just a moment. And then we insert that customer into the database. We can walk through the specifics here, but all of this code is going to be up on our GitHub. Matt will share the link when we're done. I have them wrapped, or I have Docker files as well. So if you want to deploy them with Docker files, you can do that. It's super simple. And then the same thing would happen for the action. So if a user took an action, we're going to write that action to the database. So let's go back to single store. We're going to go over to our databases. I have actions, I have customers. Inside of actions, you can see I have a number of different columns, a whole bunch of timestamp columns. Not super useful for the sake of the demonstration, but would certainly be useful down the road to build out more of a platform. The event is one that we'll want to pay closer attention to, and the user ID. If I look in here under sample data, it'll pull some data for me. So if I look at the events that are here, they viewed the dashboard, added a to-do, viewed the dashboard, completed a to-do, open. All of this has been randomly generated and then attached to these user IDs. Okay. These user IDs are also existing in the customers table, and that's where we'll see their actual data, like of who they are and things like that. And then I've got the embedding column here, which is just a blob. Can't really do much with it from viewing it. And then inside of the customers database, you can see when they were created, email first, last, phone, user ID, and embedding. And then you can see the fake email addresses that are generated, name, last name, and then their user ID. So where it gets interesting is when we start to talk to the data. So let's go chat with it. So give me one moment. Copy my API key. Okay. So first we're gonna install OpenAI and LangChain. Run that. Should only take a few more seconds. Okay. Now here we're going to use getPass to quietly store our API key. And then we're also going to create our database connection. Now, inside of our notebooks platform, this connection _ URL variable is a magic variable that holds the whole connection URI automatically for whatever database I've chosen up here. Here, we're going to assign the API key directly to the OpenAI.API key module. Choose the model we need for the embeddings. I'm just using Ada 2. And then define the actual create embedding function. Now, we need a create embedding function in here as well as in that webhook server. The reason being, we need to actually create an embedding of the query that we are asking and then send that off to do the dot product. So before I run this and start asking it things, I'll just walk you through what's happening. First, it'll ask me for input. How can I help you? It will make that the query. We will then create an embedding of that query. We have a SQL statement that selects the user ID, first name, last name, email, and the event and timestamp from the customers and the actions. And then it does a dot product against the actions embedding. Because most of the things that we're going to be doing, we're going to look for the embeddings of the actions themselves. And then we're going to interjoin that on the customer's user ID to ensure that we have access to their first and last name and things like that. Then we're going to execute that SQL statement above while taking that embedding from our question before and popping it in there. The results of which we actually need to parse and turn into a dictionary in Python. There are cleaner ways to do this, but I was kind of last minute getting this done. So I kind of made a nasty for loop here. And then we need to turn that whole dictionary into a string because that's what OpenAI is expecting when we send in that as context. And then I went ahead and truncated it at 9,000 characters. Tokens are roughly 4 characters per token. 9 characters, if we can only get 4,096 tokens in there, if I add in like all the other questions and prompt and the system prompt and stuff, we can quickly go over the prompt limit. So I went ahead and just truncated that list because it's far longer than what we need for most of our answers. This is where I build the prompt itself that goes out to ChatGPT. So the user asks this question from the context here, help answer the query. And then I actually create that message out. So let's go ahead and run that. All right. So find the 5 customers who have created the most, who have added the most to-do items in our app. And I broke it, yay. My guess is, are we out of time? Yeah, yep, took too long to get here. So we use JWT tokens to connect to the database. As I was going through and explaining all this, I just took a long time. So my token expired, so give me just a second. I'm gonna rock through this real fast. So basically, I'm going to ask it to find the 5 users who completed the most to-do items, and then write an email congratulating them on being our most productive users. Okay, so sometimes it doesn't give me exactly what I'm looking for here, but here are the users. And I would guess that's due to how much room I had for feedback to come back. Let's try a different question here. So
At the bottom, it said, now I'll help you write that email you want. So I don't know if you need like a follow-up.
yeah, so the process I have here, it doesn't have the ability to continue that conversation quite yet. So I wasn't able to get that coded before the webinar. But yeah, so the next step is it would have helped us through that, right? So how many customers have ended their subscriptions? Okay, it looks like 15 customers have ended their subscriptions. Can we write an email to send to the users who have ended their subscriptions, asking them why they ended, and then offer a 50% off coupon? There we go. So we notice your subscription has expired. We're sorry to see you go. We want to understand why you decided to end. Your feedback is valuable. Just use the code MISSYOU50 when you upgrade. We're confident it can make your life easier and more organized, blah, 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 blah. So the nice thing is too, and we've talked about this in previous webinars, with the more and more user activity data that you have access to, then you can start to write individually customized emails to each one of those users. We saw that you were able to create and complete 153 to-do items within 2 months while using our platform. Is there something that has changed to cause you to want to leave us? Is it price? Is it this? Is it that? And how can we help you resolve that problem, right? So at the end of the day, all of this is doing, and this is a very basic example, is showing that you can provide data to an LLM about your customers by just slimming down, and choosing the most accurate data to send it, and then get highly useful emails or highly useful actions out of that. Now, with a little bit of extra work, this could very easily be turned into something where, if users are not completing their email sign up within a certain standard period of time based on a calculation, then go ahead and write a customized email to them that solves that problem, or gives them a link and maybe a discount code on top of it, right? How can we entice users to come back and continue to use our product? You could also then add in a search of your documentation for each of those stages, which we talked about in a couple webinars ago too, and say, here's a link to our documentation that shows you how to finish the setup of X, Y, and Z, right? And just anything you can do to make things more contextualized to what your users need, I think is going to help you in the long run. You can ask more things that aren't specific to like reaching out to the users. You can ask, who has who's most likely to stop using our product based on their usage patterns or things like that, right? And you could start to figure out based on trends, or the AI would start to figure out based on trends, depending on how you write your SQL statements, of how soon users might be, stopping using your platform, things like that. So that is kind of our quick walkthrough of what this looks like. Before we go on to asking the questions and things like that, I did want to walk everybody through the actual sign up process so you can see what that looks like. Matt, can you actually send me the cloud trial link real quick in Slack?
No problem. 1 second. All right, you've got it in Slack.
Got it.
I'll put it in the chat for folks too.
Yeah. So if I sign in here, what is that? Use a different email address. This. Yeah, gotta make sure you create a good password. All right. Yeah. Okay, save. Go. I already signed up. But that's it though. You sign up and then you're in. And let me go into the sign in and I'll walk you through what you're going to see. So when you get into the customer portal, you have a little pop-up. It'll talk you through, here's how you can onboard and do a few things. But the big things that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to come over here and create a workspace. So over here is where your workspaces live. You can create one. Call it, Wes Dev 2. You can choose your size. You've got lots of credits to work with. This tells you, how much you're going to burn per month. You've got $600, I think, for free. Not sure what that turns into credits. And then make sure that, if you're just doing some playing around, what I do is I always do this auto suspend and I set it for about an hour. After I kind of walk away or get distracted because of ADHD, then that'll take care of shutting my thing down for me. If you want to play with the MongoDB API, make sure to check this box. And then you create the workspace. So that workspace is going to get created. Once it's up and live, you'll have, somewhere to work inside of it. So right now it's creating Wes Dev 2. And then you're able to go in and create your databases. So you would go over your SQL editor, choose your workspace. So right now that one's still building. So I can choose here. I wouldn't select a database here, but then I would, create database, blah. And eventually database blah will show up what is going on. Live demos are always the best. There we go. There's my blah database. And then you can go in and start creating tables. So you've got both our SQL editor, where you can come in and choose the new database you just created, and then start doing your create table statements. You can go into Mongo. Let's see, I don't have any that are enabled with Mongo right now. If you have the Mongo API support, you can go ahead and enable that as well. So, and then the last piece would be your notebooks here. If you do go out to the code examples today and download that notebook, you can import a notebook from file and then just drag and drop or click to browse your files. And then finally, I'll walk you through just what we have running to make all of this work. That webhook server is just a fast API app. So I'm running that on a VPS, exposing port 5000, and then inside of segment, I have a source, which is just a Python data generator, which is this folder here. That source generates events and streams, sends them to my webhook server. And then I've basically mapped, the actions of identify and track and where they need to go. So in this case, if the event type is identify, then it sends it to this path. And it sends the entire event package. So if I test, it'll send me the entire thing. Test mapping, and it comes back with okay. So this shows you the entire payload that it'll send, and you can process it from there. So in the coming day or so, I'm going to go through the README of this project here and list the steps to actually stand up the whole chat with PLG data pipeline so you can start playing with it. And I think at this point, we'll jump over to questions.
Sounds good. Thank you, Wes. So we'll now begin the Q&A. Apologies, we're probably going to end up with more questions than we can answer live, but keep the questions coming. We will follow up with everyone by email, even if we don't get to it right now. So just keep those questions coming. Q&A functionality is at the lower section of your console. So the first one I'll give to you, Wes, but note that both Akmal and Madhukar are online. So you have some phone of friends available. Here's from David. Can you elaborate on how you were doing the contextualization? Is this based on fine-tuning models, clever prompting, or is this just using the vector store and similarity search using the prompt embedding?
So largely what we're doing here is we're taking the query and then we are searching against our database using .product and returning the top X samples that match, or top N rows that match. We are building that into a dictionary that is then sent over as additional context for the LLM.
Good stuff. Related question, we had a couple from David. I thought they were all good, so I wanted to share. David said, also, you mentioned using commercial or open source LLM models. How do you generate the embeddings for the vector database in single store?
So for this, we use the OpenAI embeddings module. The private LLM that I'll be open sourcing in October will be using Llama 2, and then I haven't sorted out the actual embeddings, one that we're using. But there, if you go out on Hugging Face, you can definitely jump through and figure out, what models are available that are open sourced and ready for you to use.
Awesome. I will give this next one to Akmal. It was from Mateo. It says, will you also make examples with Google Palm, fine-tuning it for tasks? Akmal, I don't know if you want to volunteer for that one, future webinar, but I'll let you answer that.
Okay, well, thank you, Matt. I responded and replied. I thought it was a great suggestion. And I think, one of the great things about, the participants, the audience, is they always come up with some fabulous ideas and some hard questions as well. And I think that's a fabulous idea. Great idea for a future webinar. Technology-wise, I'm not familiar with that at the moment. But again, for these kind of events, I mean, often we do the research, and as Wes has shown, we can build a very good demo to demonstrate the capabilities and the features within the time that we have. So I think that's definitely something on our to-do list. We can use Wes's app for that.
Agreed. All right, awesome. I'm going to give this next one to Madhukar just because he kind of has a view of this for single store. These are things we think about for single store too, but it's from Martin. It's how do you incorporate statistical models into this whole process? Normally, in quantitative marketing, you would have predictive models, for example, to predict who is likely to churn or who is likely to respond to an email campaign.
Yeah, I mean, there are other models as well, like there's an open source, very famous model for MMM, or marketing mix model. And typically with the models is you would first train it or fine tune with your data. And then that model is used, if you use something like a LangChain, to then take the data from your database and then pass it on to the model as well. So very similar to what we are doing with LLM, you'll probably use a notebook, or just like Wes showed, a middle layer, which will intercept the queries, then talk to your database, and then contextualize that data and send it back to the model.
I see that there's a question around how token heavy are these queries. So I just went in, I logged into my OpenAI account. Today's webinar, building all the embeddings, querying it, everything was 17 cents. So this was not particularly token heavy.
Awesome. Thank you, Wes. I'm going to give this another one to Madhukar. It just appeared in the chat. It's pinecone vector dimensions are fixed per embedding type from OpenAI or Hugging Face. But in single store, the embeddings are stored in database as blobs. So wouldn't that cause an issue due to the different embedding links?
Yeah, so again, I think Akmal might be a better fit for this, but let me try and take this. We do have certain inbuilt functions that you can use in SQL directly within single store. So when you are storing the embeddings within single store, you can use JSON array pack underscore 30 F32 or F64, which basically takes your embeddings and then it optimizes for storage and converts it into JSON and then stores it directly as a binary. When you're retrieving it, and it also does compression, so optimization of performance. And when you retrieve it, where you just call the dot product, you call the JSON array unpack, which does the opposite. So from that perspective, you don't have to worry about the dimensions. Now, having said that, we are going to announce something exciting in this area in the next 1 month or so. We have our first AI developer conference coming up on October 17th. So wait for that. Without giving you too much information, I think you would like to see what we announce in terms of your question related to that.
And Matt, maybe
Awesome.
I could just add something
Go
to
ahead.
what Madhukar was
Please.
saying. So in terms of the actual storage, okay, yes, we're using blob, okay, but you've got a variety of options there. You can use long blob, medium blob, tiny blob. And so long blob, the length is 4 gigabytes if you really need it. So, I mean, that's an awful lot of storage if you really want to store something very, very large indeed. But as you saw, I mean, Wes was using, I think, the standard blob type, which we actually use for the vast majority of our demonstrations, our examples. And I think, as far as I know, many of our customers are happy with that as well. So, there's choice if you need it. And as Madhukar was saying, it really depends on the fine control that you want, whether 32-bit is enough, 64-bit, that's extreme, but we still support it.
Good stuff. Wes, I'm going to give this one to you. It came in during your demo and presentation. It was also from David. It was regarding hybrid search contextualizations. Can you elaborate further on this? What do you mean by deterministic? What kind of kernel? And when you say semantic, is this related to ontology search metrics?
Yeah, I can take that one, I guess, given that I had responded and I saw Akmal was also typing something. So when I say it's a hybrid query, typically, let's say you're using Pinecone, and I saw somebody was also talking about Lucene. So let's say, let's take an actual use case from one of our customers called Lumix AI. And what they do is they have hundreds of cameras in live streaming the data coming out from traffic. And they use it for Amber Alert. So let's say if there is an Amber Alert, you have some information, which could be both as an image, but also deterministic in the sense it was a Tesla, it was white colored, the license plate had something related with the letter K. And of course, there's a picture of the person who might be a suspect. Now, typically what you would do is, yeah, you're right, you would go to Lucene or you would go to Mongo or wherever, and then you do a search for, show me everybody in this geospatial area where the model type is Tesla, color equals white, and has K in the overall license plate. You get that query, then you attach it to another query that you would do to Pinecone or Milvus for a vector search, and then you re-rank it and then send it back. But in use cases like this, milliseconds matter, not just seconds. And if this was, so what our customers are doing is they're combining both searches in one single query. So I could say, select something where model equals Tesla Y, and in that license plate has K, so you're doing some sort of a lexical search. And then in that, you're also doing a dot product and saying, by the way, now, if you have done this deterministic part, now also do the semantic, show me the rank, and then in that, I could re-rank it too, and then send it all back in milliseconds. So that's what I meant when I said that it's a combination of both deterministic as well as semantic in one single go.
Thanks, Madhukar. It's a really cool example. I'm thinking about it because my car was broken into here in Chicago yesterday, and I got photos of the culprit. I wish Chicago subscribed to that service that you're describing. Okay, Akmal, I'll give this one to you. I noticed you answered it in the chat, but I thought it was a good one for the community to hear. It's from Apurva. This data can be stored in Lucene index. Why would I want to vectorize or embed them?
Yeah, I mean, just the example that Madhukar gave. I mean, that's an awful sort of awful slip of the tongue, spoonerism. Awesome. Awesome example. There you go. Of how you can combine sort of various technologies together. And so we support Lucene as well. It's great for doing some type of keyword searches, but the semantic search is a whole different thing, as Madhukar pointed out, and the ability to do both of them. And again, I think it very much depends on the use case and the customer and what they are trying to achieve in the end. It may be that, for example, the embeddings are not appropriate. The text search might be perfectly sufficient for what they're doing. But in the case of the semantic example that Madhukar was giving, I think that's a great kind of an add-on, something extra that we do that, and combine within one product that our competitors cannot do.
Good call. All right, great. I think we might have time for one more question before we wrap up and announce today's winners. Unless Wes, Akmal, Madhukar, unless anyone has a favorite question they want to answer. I've got one more, but you guys, I'll give you a moment. All right, I'll grab this one. Madhukar, I guess I'll pose this one to you. It is, can we run LLMs on the database OS single store and then run these LLMs online using single store cloud services on subscription basis?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So when you say run an LLM, think of it as it's a big, large binary file. And so you get some providers that will host the LLM for you. For example, of course, OpenAI, Cohere, and others. But if you're using your own LLM, then you would download that if you want to train it or fine tune it. You get a different version of that binary file, and then you call it with certain libraries like LangChain or something to either create embeddings or to do completions or generation, whatever that is. So a binary file you can store in a database, sure, but typically that's not its ideal use case. The ideal use case is you use the data and the information to extract in real time, match it, and then hand it over to your LLM, which could be sitting anywhere else.
Yeah, it almost seems
awesome.
like they're asking it almost seems like they're asking if we can actually run those LLMs inside of single store itself rather than just store them. I think it's the running as an action, maybe as a function. And that's, I think that's a whole different ball of wax for sure.
Cool, good stuff. I will give the announce our winners and some final announcements. Wes, could you pull up those final slides as I go through this? So quick note before announcing the AirPods winner, as I mentioned during the intro, next week we will be presenting how to use Google Vertex AI to fine-tune LLM apps. During that time, we'll be presenting a hands-on coding demo of how to fine-tune LLM apps. So if that topic sounds good to you, register right now. I'll put the link in the chat. You can also snap that QR code there on the screen. And then once again, heads up that Single Store is sponsoring some $100 off discount codes for the upcoming Real-Time AI Developers Conference at the Chase Center in San Francisco on October 17th. So I'll put that in the chat as well. And then let's go ahead and announce today's winner. All right. Today's AirPods winner goes to Alex Greenwald, Senior Manager of Analytics at Quad, also here in Chicago, maybe next door to where I'm presenting right now. Congrats, Alex. If that's not you, don't give up. We are going to announce one more AirPods winner by the end of the day to anyone who has tried out today's demo. Check your email. We're going to send out the recording. Here is the GitHub. I'll put it in the chat right now. This will also be in your email. So again, feel free to try this out today. We're going to announce one more AirPods winner by the end of the day. Thank you, Wes, for an awesome presentation and demo. Thank you to everyone for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.